got your system, you know your audience, you're tracking everything, but still you find yourself making excuses why not to post content. I don't have time today. This topic isn't good enough. Maybe next week. You can stick to a workout routine, manage a business, show off for clients, but somehow you can't post one video a week. And don't give me the whole I don't have time, because most people have time. And it's not a time problem, it's a brain problem. So in the next 11 minutes, I'll show you 3 specific psychological patterns that messes up your consistency, why your brain is working against you, and the exact techniques I use to work with my psychology rather than fighting it. And by the end, you'll stop trying to overpower your goddamn mind and start working with it, how it actually functions, because surprise, surprise, we are all unique and work in different ways. So when I started my first business, helping creators grow on Twitter, I spent months setting up the perfect content system. I had my checklist, I had my batch days, my tracking spreadsheets, the whole damn thing. And still, I couldn't post consistently. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'd research for hours writing something decent, then stare at it and think, this is just bullshit, man. This is horrible, and not publish it. Or I post something and immediately want to just delete it from the internet. And to be honest, I almost did that exact same thing when I wrote this script for this video here. But it's better to get it out there, gather some data, and do better next time. So what I discovered when I finally had enough of just finding myself and all the advice out there didn't work for me, like set a timer, reward yourself, you have to meditate, you have to see yourself doing the thing, and self-affirmation and embrace the pain kind of thing. You know, the whole hustle culture thing. And none of that didn't work for me. So what I did was digging a bit deeper into psychology. And what I learned is that your brain doesn't know the difference between being chased by a tiger or trying to post a video and putting yourself out there. Like both of them are big stressors, but the brain doesn't know the difference. When I had these issues where I was thinking of posting content or not posting content, my primal brain took over and just said to me, don't do it. Like, this is dangerous. It's dangerous for you to put yourself out there because you can be judged and shit like that. And I had this stress response, not like I was panicking or anything like that, but my primal brain took that of posting something on the internet as a threat to me. Just to give you an example here from back in the days when I worked with a client on Twitter, I helped him with his business and content marketing. And I found that he's been working on it for 8 fucking months without posting content at all. And it's not because he was stupid at all. He was a really smart guy and he knows his stuff, he knows his niche. But every time he sat down to make content that would grow that actually would grow his business, he'd find reasons not to post it, like every reason at all. And I thought to myself, that isn't just a strategy problem. That must be something deeper. And it turns out it is. So while we think we might be big brain and super smart, and we are to a degree, but we still have this very caveman-like mind within our brain. So what really helped me understand this is just think of us as smart creatures with an ancient brain living in a modern world. It can't distinguish, and it sounds weird because when you look at a car and a tiger, you can know like, okay, the tiger is probably more dangerous than the car. Well, I guess it depends on who's behind the wheel, but I think you get my point here. It seems counterintuitive, but apparently that's just how our brains work. Like, we are cavemen living in a modern world. So the way we survived back in the days, when we were cavemen living in caves, were to find a tribe, be a productive member of a tribe where we had our place and we contributed to that tribe. And being kicked out of the tribe meant certain death. And that's what we're seeing here when we are, at least that's what I saw within myself and I saw with my client, is the same kind of stress response. We are hesitant to post content because we fear the judgment of our tribe. Like, if people make fun of us, if people judge us, if people expels us from the tribe, it's a threat to our way of surviving, like our primal way of surviving. And apparently, according to science, the smarter you are, the more likely you are to have these kind of problems with posting content. Because smart people are really good at finding logical reasons not to post content, where the people not thinking that much are just like, hey, fuck it, I'll just post something and I don't care about the next day. So let's take a look at some of the pattern. Pattern 1, your brain thinks content will kill you. I know that sounds very out there and very edgy, but bear with me here. So there's this research from UCLA, a guy named Matthew Lieberman, and he found that your brain processes social rejection the exact same way it processes physical pain. Like it's the same neural pathways lighting up. And what that means is when you're thinking about posting content, part of your primitive brain thinks you're about to actually get hurt. So to jump back to my client, here's how that showed up in my client. He'd write something, then immediately think that people will think I don't know what I'm talking about, imposter syndrome, or this sounds stupid, or who am I to give advice? And to me, at least, that sounded very familiar because I think most of you guys, and including me, have imposter syndrome. Like, it's very hard to actually post yourself out there and give your opinion, even though you know your stuff. There's some little voice in your head like screaming, are you certain you know what you're talking about? So what my client did is he wouldn't post anything, and he hid behind perfectionism, never getting anywhere. But here's the most fucked up part. Not posting made him feel worse about himself, which made the next post feel even scarier. Like it's just a evil spiral of if you don't do the thing, it just becomes even harder. So I guess a name for that would be stupid, dumb monkey brain fear spiral, just to give it some kind of good name. The more you avoid it, the bigger the monster gets. So this made me look into phobias and how psychiatrists deals with phobias. And the way they do that is they don't throw you headfirst into what it is you're fearing. Like if you're fearing spiders, they're not just going to throw your ass into a room filled with 1,000 spiders and you're cured. No, they start very, very small, like super small. Like if you are afraid of spiders, you are going to see a picture of a spider in the next room with a glass between you. Like whatever the most tiniest step is towards actually holding a spider, for example. They did the same thing. They do that thing. So I actually did the same thing with him. I had him making content the same as psychiatrists are treating phobias. So week 1, I had him just comment, and I know this is going to sound very super stupid, but week 1, I had him just comment on other people's videos. So week 2, he shared someone else's content, but added his own take in the caption. So week 3, I had him record videos of himself and talking about whatever, really. And the reason were to kind of get him familiar with making content and being on camera, because the way you talk on camera and the way you talk to your friends are very different, especially in the beginning. So the rule here was he wasn't allowed to watch the video right after, because right after you watch a video, you are in a kind of emotional state where you might not be as objective as you could watching that same video. So week 4, we built it upon the recorded videos. I had him edit his own videos, and by week 5, actually, he posted content of himself and what he offered his audience. So I know these steps sounds almost ridiculous, but think of it, if you are going like all in and trying to record a video of yourself, putting yourself out there on your first day, and you have this kind of anxiety about it, you're only going to promote that fear spiral we talked about, the dumb monkey fear spiral, and you're not going to get back into it. So it's much, much better to take these small steps that feels like laughable easy. And that's the whole reason why this worked for him, because he was exposing himself in a very, very tiny way to being online and posting himself online. We started with just engaging with content online, and then we ended up actually making recorded videos, edit them, and posting himself out there with what he offers his audience. So each tiny step he took was to reduce that fear or threat response he had to post content that he hid behind perfectionism. Speaking of perfectionism, pattern 2 is the perfectionism trap. And I want to talk about how I actually overcame it, because I am a recovering perfectionism. And before you roll your eyes at me and think, oh great, another perfectionism lecture, because there is a lot on YouTube, hear me out here, because most people misunderstand what perfectionism actually is. I used to think that perfectionism was about having high standards. Turns out it might actually be more about fear of judgment disguised as quality control. Now, I'm going to butcher his name here, but Tim Peichel, I think his name is Tim Peichel. He's a researcher who studies procrastination. He found that perfectionism isn't really about the work, but protecting yourself from criticism by never putting actually truly finished work out there. When I learned that, I had to think back to the time when I was in high school. I was scared of the grade my task would get. Like my assignment, we had some big test, and the day before the test, I were due to deliver the test, I would go out with friends or have a beer or something like that, because then I had that as a fail system for if the test went bad and I got a bad grade, I could always say, hey, I didn't give it my all, because I was afraid that if I actually gave it my all and I got a bad grade, my ego would feel hurt. And I don't know if you know who Brené Brown is, but he calls this a armor. Perfectionism protects you from vulnerability by ensuring you never really fully show up. And what perfectionism really is, it's really you tying up your self-worth to your ego and to the success of your work. I know it seems silly to think that, but that's what I learned at least. It's an ego problem. Perfectionism is an ego problem. I mean, just take a look at some of the successful business out there. Like Google doesn't perfect their search algorithm before releasing an update. They release it, gather data, improve, and the same should be with your content. Like you're doing an okay job with the content, you put it out there, you get some data, and then you're moving on to the next piece of content. And I know that's super hard, at least it is for me, and it was and still is for me. It's really hard to detach your ego from the work you put in. But in order to be successful, I think you have to kind of detach your ego from your work, at least to some degree, in order to get progress. Because if we don't, we end up pursuing this perfectionism. We never get anything done. And what I actually did with my content is I did what I called a prototype threshold, a fancy name for something not smart. So what I aim for is not perfect, but good enough to get out there and help someone. And for me, that's three things. One, does this solve one specific problem? Two, is the audio clear enough that people can understand what I'm saying? And three, would I feel comfortable sending this to a dear friend? And if I can say yes to all three of those, I will publish it. Everything else is data for version 2.0 or the next piece of content, whatever it is. Pattern number three is when your ego or your identity kind of fights your action or goals or wants. And I know it sounds like very fluffy and out there, but after I came to my newfound perspective on perfectionism, and it makes complete sense, I still had this kind of inner resistance in me, like something was like fighting me every step of the way. There's something called cognitive dissonance. Leon Festinger, I hope I'm not butchering his name, discovered this. Your brain hates when your actions don't match your self-image. What the hell does that mean? So when you're sitting there and have recorded your video and looking it through, and you have this self-image of you being a confident person, but now you are hyper-focused on finding every little signal that you can on not being that person, you're going to find those signals. Believe me, you're going to find every little cue you can find of you not being a confident person. And you're going to find a billion reasons not to post anything at all. Like, I'm too busy, this isn't working out. Maybe I'm not just cut out for this. And I had this exact problem. And I still have this problem. Like I saw myself as a private person who didn't do social media and kind of like an anti-influencer. So every time I posted, part of me felt like I was being fake or attention seeking. So the solution I came to, at least, is to not change your entire personality. Like, it's not like you have to go on some trip to be a completely different person. It is to bridge your current identity to one that serves your business goals. Instead of I'm a private person who doesn't do social media, I reframe that to I'm a business owner who shares what I'm learning to help other business owners. A small bonus here. Our mind hates change. It just wants to stay the same, so it don't have to spend energy on doing a new thing or adapting into a new person or a new routine or anything like that. So that's why doing a new thing often feels like uncomfortable. Like, if you've never been to the gym, it's going to feel uncomfortable going to the gym. Or if you've never been to a dancing class, it will feel uncomfortable going to that dancing class. But that's okay. Like, you trying to kind of form your identity into something you strive to or an ideal you want to have, is going to be uncomfortable because it is change. But that's just an undeniable, is that the word? Undeniable? That's just going to be not deniable. I don't know if that's the word. Change is inevitable. Thanos is Right, so how do you actually apply all the stuff we just talked about? First, the anxiety audit. Every time you feel resistance to posting something, ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid will happen? Like if you try to break it down logically, you'll find that most likely there isn't any reason to it. Like some random guy on the other end of the earth might post something in or might comment something. Like who the hell cares about a person on the other side of the world? You're not going to ever meet that person or have him in your life or anything like that. So that doesn't sound too bad. So try to write it down and be specific. Like it really helps to get it out of your mind and down on the paper, so it kind of gets concrete. So you have it in the actual world, so it's not just something in your head, but you're putting it down on a paper. And second, set up your prototype system before perfectionism kicks in, because it probably will kick in at some point, even though you are aware of it. So before you start creating anything, write down what's good enough. What does good enough look like? If you're creating a video, what does good enough look like? It might be, okay, I have an intro. People know what I'm talking about. They can clearly hear what I'm talking about. I'm not wasting time talking about anything not related to the problem I'm solving. And I have a clear call to action at the end of my video. And like I said earlier, mine is, does this solve one problem? Is the audio clear? And would I send this to a friend? When I hit those 3 criteria, goddamn, that's hard to say, I just posted. No more tweaking, no more getting caught in the perfectionist loop. It's just out of there, and I can focus on the feedback I get from that and the data points onwards to the next video. Third, work on your identity bridge. You could write this down. I'm not just whatever you currently see yourself labeled as. I am whatever your goal is. And again, it sounds silly and it sounds fluffy to write that shit down, but putting what's in here down on a paper really does make a difference. Right, so this was kind of a deep dive into what most people call a lack of motivation or being lazy. So let's talk a bit more about the motivation part, because most hustle bro advice when it comes to motivation is just push through. You have to work harder, you have to push yourself further, and you'll see this kind of guy, Andrew Tate kind of following, being like, you just have to work hard, you just have to push through, and you just have to like become a fucking machine. And at least from my experience, that doesn't work at all, because it's trying to take one frame of doing things, and it might work for some people, but taking one frame that works for one people and trying to mass apply it to everybody is not going to work, because we are just too different. And to give you an analogy, it's like arm wrestling your own nervous system. You might win sometimes, but most of the time you will lose, and it's going to be very, very hard, and it's going to be you just burning out in no time. So the advice I gave you here is, at least from my perspective and from my experience, going to work a lot better than most of the advice out there you're going to get, because this kind of approach, taking your unique psychology and build around that, rather than taking your psychology and trying to put it into a certain box and trying to really just force it in there. So what I'm really trying to say here is, what worked for Bob might not work for you. So your content problems most likely aren't a time problem or time management problem or strategy. They're most likely about your psychology. Once you start to understand why your brain sabotages consistency, you can design a system that works with your unique brain and unique psychology instead of against it. But even with the perfect psychology, if there even is such a thing as a perfect psychology, if you're making the wrong content for the wrong audience, your business won't grow anyway. And most YouTube advice out there is going to give you exactly that. Content that doesn't grow your business. It's fine if you want to be a content creator and rely on ad revenue, but if you want to use YouTube as your marketing tool and to help you drive revenue, then watch this video next.